Hey guys, Chris Fate with Cheat the Game coming back at you. I know it's been a while, sorry about that, but this is probably one of the hardest tunts I've ever tried to do. I have started over so many times, it's just pathetic. And the reason being is that's why you don't really see too many fly hacks out there, because it is very difficult. There's nothing easy about it. So I'm just laying that on the line straight up. When you go in there, you're messing with physics and things of that nature. No two games are alike. Physics are calculated differently in each game. They're handled differently in each games, and like I said, there are certain basic techniques that you can use to get you where you need to be, to look at values, to go around and play with some stuff. But that's mostly what you're going to be doing. Is you're going in there and you're just going in there screwing around with different values, seeing what it affects, or if it affects anything, and then maybe trying to manipulate a value that is kind of working for you, and just go from there and build on that particular variable. But a lot of it is trial and error. But if you understand game mechanics and you understand how the game is operating, then you know you can kind of get in the vicinity of where you need to be. And one thing you're going to come in contact with and come to find out is dissect data is going to be your best friend as far as this goes, because you're going to spend a lot of time in it. There's a lot of hunt and peck, trial and error. You're going to crash your game a lot. It's going to get frustrating. You just got to set it to the side, come back to it some other time, but don't ever give up on it, because eventually you'll find certain things that you can work with. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in there with Far Cry Primal, basically taking from the last lesson that we just had on create a super jump for almost any game, and we're just going to continue on from there and see if we can get some kind of a decent fly hack. And then right after that, after we do that manually together, I'm just going to go in there and show you how I used the exact same techniques to get fly hack and also an air climb in Witcher 3. I'm not going to show you how I did that because I did it the exact same way. Okay, so no technique was any different. So let me go ahead and bring up Far Cry Primal. I'll be right back with you. Let me change my comparison on the infinite health because I'm back at the beginning. And I got my super jump. This is what we did last time. If you don't know how to do the super jump, I'll put the link up in the upper right hand corner. Please go take a look at it, because we're building off that lesson. Okay. But what I'm going to teach you how to find is this thing right here called char to ground ratio. And this is what gives us our lift. This is actually telling the computer or the game where we are touching, or where it thinks we're touching the ground collision field. There is no ground. It is just a regular plane, and with bump maps on it to make it look hilly or whatever, and a bunch of different things like weeds, trees, and everything of that nature stuck onto it. But it's just a bunch of polygon shapes and collision fields. And if you notice, this is the address of our ground collision field. And our ground collision field is what gives us the illusion that we're standing on solid ground. And if you see, we're not 100% on the ground, even though it looks that way to us in the game. We can't see it with the naked eye, but it's just a variable a little bit above. If you see that, just a little bit above the ground collision field. And the reason being, if you was totally at zero or a negative value, you would fall through the collision field, and you just keep falling into nothingness, in a 3D studio. So you have to do it a little bit above the collision field, just so you don't fall through. I'm sure you've seen these bugs in certain games like Batman Origins and Arkham Knight when it first came out, that you jump in certain areas, you seem to fall through the floor and just fall into nothingness. That's because they had some bugs in the collision field there. You were falling through the floor. And that's what this variable was right here. So I'm going to show you how to find that right quick, and I'll show you what it does. Now, I'll probably die a few times. I may even crash the game a few times, but do forgive me. I'll just pause it and reload it back up. But it just comes with the territory as far as this goes. But what we're eventually going to achieve is we're not actually working with our Y coordinate, which in this game uses Y for up and down, north and south. We're actually going to be using a collision field just for our character. We're going to make the game think that we're standing on solid ground, even though we're actually in midair. And so when I raise that collision field, that ground collision field for our guy, No matter wherever the value is going up, it's going to think we're standing on solid ground. I'm going to show you. Let me turn my infinite help code on. I'm not sure if that even works right now. I still need to play around with that. The offsets have been a bitch. But if you see now, if I just run around now and jump, just jump like normal, you know, I'm jumping back on the ground, and we get the illusion that we're actually on solid ground. However, if I change that char to ground ratio to, let's say, 10, say I changed that to 10, now look where we are. But the game thinks we're still on that ground. Look. See that? The game still thinks we're on solid ground. It don't know any better. You still got to go around collision fields and things of that nature. You can raise it up even higher. Let's say 30. Take a look. But the game still thinks we are standing on solid ground. We're not. We're just a little bit above. So you got to calculate for all collision fields, and you're still limited to the walls, the collision field walls of the area map. So it's just not like you can just go anywhere, because they're invisible barriers that you cannot pass beyond. Unless we get like a no clip, which that's later in the future. But that's what I'm going to teach you how to find today. We're going to find that ground to char ratio. And usually all games have it. It's just very difficult to find. And usually when you find it, not all of them will actually let you write to it. So we'll learn later on how to have full access to codes to be able to do that, but not in this lesson here. But I'm going to show you how to do this, and this is how we make our fly hack. And let me just go ahead and bring everything back to normal, and I'll show you. Okay, now that we have everything we need, what I want to do before we start is I enable speed hack, but I don't want to keep coming back and forth to do speed hack. So I'm going to write a quick little script to set it to a hotkey, and I can just mash it to make it go slow when I need to and back to normal when I need it to. We go to Tools, Template, Cheat Table Framework, and that adds the enable and disable. And what I want to do is the command Lua call, because Cheat Engine is based off the Lua script. Alright, and we add the parentheses, and we choose speed hack as our function. And what do we want it to do? We want it to set speed. You have to capitalize the speed. It is case sensitive. And parentheses again for our value. And I'm going to say 0.1 and close both parentheses. And what this will do is we can just set a hotkey to it, and it will slow the game down for us. And then when we disable it, we just want to set it back to 1, which is normal speed. Assign that to the current cheat table. Slow down speed quickly and set a hotkey. I'm just going to choose like a random like slash or something, slash bar. I want to activate and deactivate, and there we go. We can now use a hotkey to slow the game down to kind of help us out to find the variable we're looking for. I want to go up here, get up on that cliff. We need that little plateau right there. Now there are all kind of ways to do fly hack. You can actually modify your Y coordinates if you can find the actual variable we're looking for now. And the reason I'm doing this to find that char to ground ratio is because it's a constant. And to find a constant, we can't really go look for it because it's never changing. So we have to look for something else. So we want to look for something that may be related to it. And what would be related to it? Well, in past videos, I said when you can't find the variable, try to go for the flags. Flags always have to change. They are Boolean values, on and off, true or false, yes or no, however you want to look at it. But a flag value In this particular scenario, one states that we're on the ground, there's a flag value, and then when we're off the ground, the flag turns off, and it sends us to a different location in the program to start the falling animation, where he waves his arms and then falls to the ground or whatever. So we need to find, and I want to find that flag variable that says 1 and 0 every time we're standing on the ground versus when we're in the air. Usually it cycles between 0 and 1, 1 and 0. You don't really know. Sometimes it could be other variables altogether. But just to save us some time, I've already done all the hard searching and crashing games, and we're just going to bypass all the mess and go straight for the value. I know that 1 is the flag when we're standing flat on the ground, and 0 is when we're up in the air. And believe me, it took me a while to find that. But now that I know that's what it is, it won't take long at all. So while we're standing on the cliff, we know we're at 1 on the ground. But I'm going to search for an unknown value. You never want to search for a 1 and 0 when you've got so many addresses to search through. It'll take forever. So we got to do a looser search so we can find it quicker. Alright, so I'm going to go back to my game, and I want to go ahead and turn on my speed hack to slow the game down. Just like that. And we're just going to jump up in the air and jump off this thing. And I want to pause it. Make sure my infinite health is on so I don't lose health. And now that we're in the air, I'm going to say it's decreased value. I'm saying that it's 0 now. So let it do its scan right quick. We'll clean up the RAM a little bit. Clean out the clutter. There we go. We got 29,000 more to go. And I can hit my hotkey, unchanged. Unchanged. Let it go back down. Let him touch the ground. Let's let him straighten up a little bit. I guess my hotkeys are sticking because it's kind of double clicking on me, and I don't want to. I'm going to have to do this manually. So I'm going to say at increased value, we're back on the ground. I'm going to say it's back to 1, next scan. And now we're down to 3 million. Now we can search for that exact value. Sometimes I don't like doing that because it could be cycling between 3 different numbers, like 0, 1, and 2. So be careful with that. So maybe we should just keep it at increased value for the time being until we weed them down more. So I'm not going to do that right now. So let's go ahead and turn the speed back up. Let's get back on the plateau. And I'm just going to do this a couple of times, and then I'm just going to find it. I'm just going to pause it. I'm not going to sit here and go through the entire process of jumping off the cliff and doing searches. You understand that. You should by this lesson anyway. Okay, I weeded them down to about 478, and I still kind of want to weed them down more. I try to get them down as little as possible. Like I say, we're dealing with flag values. Also, let me reiterate on how important this flag is for a fly hack. You're always going to need to find it. I always recommend finding your ground and air flag value, because whether you might do it my way, look for a char to ground ratio, or you modify your Y coordinate or Z coordinate, whichever one's controlling the vertical axis. No matter how you do it, you need to turn off the falling effect. And this is the best way to do it, is to make the computer think you're still on the ground. And that flag is what's controlling that. So this is a flag you're going to need to find regardless. And you can find variables around that flag that can actually work better than the flag, which is what we're doing here. But this is a very important flag, and I should have reiterated that earlier. Okay, but just to kind of save us some time, this is what normally you're not going to have this value here, so we know what we're kind of looking for anyway. But a lot of times you're not going to have that. And when you find your Y coordinates, you always want to find those, like I stated earlier. Make sure that you have that available, and we kind of want to look in the vicinity. Now, it could be real close to it, it could be very far away from it, but usually if it starts with a B, your flag is going to start with a B, if you get my drift. So when you see all these other flag values starting with 0, 3, 9, and other things, you can use the process of elimination and pay attention to the flags that begin with your Y coordinate. and your coordinates period, because they're all related to each other somewhat. So I want to add the B's right here. There's only 4. I'm going to add those to the cheat tables, and those are the ones I want to concentrate on. And like I said, they could be really far apart. So saying BB and just looking for the BB and say, oh, that's it. No, not necessarily. Okay. But usually it's within the same confines of that registry. So what we're interested in is looking at the value itself. We want to see what's manipulated, what ain't being manipulated. Well, I still have my, okay, I still got slow speed on. Let me turn regular speed back on. There we go. There we go. And look up above. Every time I jump, let me slow it back down. I want you to look at those values. We got one there at the bottom just fluctuating all over the place. That can't be it. And we see that one just fluctuated all over the place. That can't be it. So now we're left with 2. So let's see what those 2 are doing. They turn to 0. And 1. So they probably are in relation to each other. But that looks like one that we could potentially want to try. So I'm going to turn this back on. And I'm just going to X out each of them and pray that my game doesn't crash. Not, we'll have to start over. But we can always use our Y coordinate or your vertical axis coordinate to help guide us in the future to get it more quickly. And let's just see if there's anything happening. Look at that. You see that? We're kind of staying up in the air. It affected us. That's what we're looking for. So which one did it? We don't know. So let's go back up the cliff. Probably could just jump up in the air, but I prefer to use the cliff. That flag is very important. That will help you in any type of fly hack you want to do. You can modify your Y coordinate to a certain height and make sure that you modify your flag opcode with it. You can combine the script. Boom, you got another top fly hack. And I believe somebody on the Cheat Engine website was talking about that too, which is good advice. But you always want to try to find that particular flag. So I'm just going to freeze one of them and jump off. See if that does anything. That's it. That very top one. That's the one we're wanting. The very one I just froze. The game's writing to it faster than Cheat Engine, so you know it's the game's overriding what Cheat Engine is doing. So we have found our ground flag. When that flag's on, it turns off our falling. Very good. So what I want to do is I want to find out what is accessing this address, and I'm not even modifying that right now. I'm just finding where it's at, what offset's controlling it, and you can see several offsets controlling it, but I'm not really looking for that. Okay, I'm looking for something else. I'm just going to choose one and make sure that it equals our address. We see B97B, E448. We see R8 right here. It's doing some type of compare. I'm just looking at it. Does that match our address? Plus 20 or plus 08? It absolutely does. 48. So I want to copy that base address for the time being. Go back out. Go to memory view and let's go to dissect data structure and let's just start messing around. Bring that up here. That we know that there's going to be some interesting values near that collision flag for the ground collision flag. So define new structure. Just yes every screen that comes up. We know that this is our ground collision flag, and it's on 4 bytes, so we could probably found it on 4 bytes. So keep that in mind also. That's none of these methods I'm showing are written in stone. It's just a technique you can use, okay? I'm going to put that as ground collision flag. Let's look at some more of these values down here. I like looking for floats, doubles, things like that. These are usually your physics values, whether it be your char to ground ratio, gravity, whatever. And these are the ones I want to play around with. As you can see, they're all over the place. But to save time, normally what I do is I go play with every one of these. I'll do them to a different level, see if it affects something. A lot of times it won't affect anything. It'll just turn back to that value. Well, I just move on and see if I find something that is affected. Well, when I played around, I got to this value right here, number 88. This offset. I'm like, what is that? And I just said, well, what happens if I set that to 1? So I go back to my game, and I saw myself do that, and I said, uh-oh, what is this? Well, long story short, I found the char to ground ratio. That's the one we were looking for. So we're going to add that to the address list. And as you can see, when I found it previously, char to ground ratio. This is the distance that is acceptable where the game considers you on the ground, basically. Okay? Every game has it. Every single game. It's usually within the same structure as your ground flag. The flag that turns on and off, whether you're in the air versus the ground, the very flag we found that is an extremely important flag. You can go manipulate, I can go manipulate my Y coordinate now. I can put it up to 200, keep that flag turned on, boom, I'm up in the air. I can walk around probably. I might have to tweak it here and there. Or I could use this. They're working in concert with each other. So whatever I put this to, that one is always going to be on. Because the game is considering me still on the ground. It's allowing a deeper threshold between me and the ground to consider me still on the ground and not falling. So I can set that to 20, whatever, you know. Just to save some time, let's get on with the script. I'm going to find out what is accessing the address. I'm going to go back in there. And like I say, it's a constant, so there's nothing really writing to it because it's not subtracting or multiplying. It's just being monitored by other values that it's controlling, that it's gathering information from. And I just go to the most used one and I just play around. Firstly, I want to make sure that that is the only address that's being affected. Let's put that on float. Go back to the game and see if any other addresses are being, and we see that's the only one, so that's good. That means it's only dealing with that particular address. It's moving that value into XMM1 and doing its math with its physics and everything like that. Let's see if we can manipulate it. Let's go to auto assemble and we're going to create an AOB injection, and we're just going to go fly test 1. Find its unique array of bytes, and here's where we just start playing around. We know that this is not changing our value in any way, form, or fashion because it's a constant. So I want to modify what that constant is. RCX plus A8. And when I turn the code on, I want it to be, let's just say, float 10. Assign that to the current cheat table. And like I say, we're just experimenting. And we're just going to put this as fly test 1. Okay. Alright, so we resume. Now let's just go turn our code on. When I turn it on, does it affect me in any way, form, or fashion? And we're more up in the air. Look at that. The game is still considering us on the ground. We're still hitting collision fields, so to really bypass that, we need to get higher than the collision field with the trees, the rocks, and everything like that. So, you know, there's a lot of tweaking that needs to be done and things of that nature. So normally what I do is I go in and assign a flag value, and I'm not going to do all that. I've done it so many times on this channel. Everybody knows how to do it that watches me. And I'm going to load up my previous one. I got a fly hack I made already, and let me bring that up. And I just set a flag to it, and I'm going to show you what I did. Here's my fly hack right here. I'm just going to copy that. I'm just going to paste it into here, and I'm going to show you my fly hack. And I'll just kind of go over it a little bit. And as you can see, I'm using the exact same location. The exact same location as we found, and this is how I did it. Is I went ahead and I assigned a different location that I could store some my own flag values, and I'm using that as a start and an end, and it's comparing, and I show you how to do all this like in the teleport hack. It's the same stuff. Alright, when I want to go up and fly up, I mash one particular hotkey and it jumps to here and adds 65 or whatever I have it to my variable. And when I want it go back to normal, I just copy what the original number was, and it moves that back in there and takes me back down to the ground. You do need infinite health, because if you turn it off or use that key to turn it off and you don't have infinite health, you're going to die when you hit the ground. So that's very important also. So I'm not really going into that. I got plenty of vids to show you how to make your own flags. I'll put the links up in the description. And that's all I did, was just make my own flags and assign hotkeys to them to have two different effects right here. And I'm going to show you that. The fly up is the up arrow. Land down is the down arrow. I assign to this right here. So I'm going to turn my fly hack on. It assigned it an address. So when I'm ready to come back to the ground, I just mash my down arrow. Boom, there I am. And when I'm ready to go up, it assigns 65 to it. I just mash my hotkey. Up in there I go. Look at that. And my flag, if you notice, my ground flag is still on right here. It still considers me on the ground. It doesn't know any better because we increased the threshold of where it considers you on the ground and not in the air. And that's something you can play around with. That flag, very important in any fly hack. You always want to find that flag. Always. I always recommend it. Alright? So that's basically how I did it there. I want to show you just quickly. I did the exact same technique in Witcher 3. I found the ground flag variable, and I found that char to ratio. However, it had a different effect than lift off. It had a wall climb or an air climb to it, and I'm going to show that to you, so I'll be right back. Yeah, I brought up my play around codes here, and for Witcher 3, let me go ahead and get to the game here. This won't take but a second.
Seeking his lover of yore, the sorceress Yennefer. She'd eluded him for years, but now seemed just a few steps ahead.
Alrighty. Let me just step over here out of the way. Kind of right in here. And basically I did this exact same way. You can take a look. Here's my air climb. And basically what I did is I just found, if you notice a kind of a similarity, that's the ground, the char to ground ratio. That's the maximum allowed distance that the ground allows you. However, it has a little bit different effect in here. You have to go by negatives, and that's why I say every game is different. It's not going to react the same exact way. So you need to take that consideration. Try negative values, try decimal values, try positive values. You know, you're going to have to play around with things like this. But when I turn it on, go ahead and activate that, and I got another that just activates the script in itself. You'll notice when I turn it on, 8 doesn't really do anything. Didn't lift me up in the air or nothing. But watch when I jump. He climbs up in there. I thought it was really cool, unique, kind of a distortion there. And with the air climb on, I also found like a specific location that will increase my height as well. Just playing around with different values. Every game's different, and when I have the both activated together, which let me go ahead and turn that one on too for number 9. You see we rising there, but the only problem is if we stop like this, we keep rising. I haven't really found a way to turn that off, but if we just walk like normal or run, you know, we'll kind of stay flat. We kind of fall down. The graphics kind of goes out on me a little bit, but you see these values were found doing the exact same techniques as we did earlier. And they can work for you. You just need to get in there and play around. Don't be afraid to crash your game. You will get frustrated a lot, but you know, just set it to the side, come back to it later, and you can get some really cool things out of it. It's a lot different effects, and try things out. And if worse comes to worse, you can always go back to your Y or Z coordinate, whichever one's controlling that vertical axis, and just use your ground collision flag, and you can do it that way too. There's no one way set in stone. It's, you know, all different types of things. You can see I got all kinds of effects, so I still need to work out some bugs in it, but we're getting there. But that's all I got time for. I know this went on a little bit, but I needed to explain this is an extremely hard hack to do. Very frustrating, but don't let it. Just keep at it. Go just play around with stuff, and you'll eventually find it, and then you can write your own scripts on how you see fit. Alright? Well, that's all I have time for. You guys take care. You keep on hacking. Most importantly, please enjoy yourself. That's really what it's all about. You cheat the game, fellas, because believe me, it doesn't mind cheating. You all take care now.